He, in his sabbatical this past fall, composed the urban symphony, right? And that premiered with our orchestra this past March. I was privileged enough to be able to be there, to hear it, to participate in it, and it was absolutely amazing. And I'm excited for us all to be able to hear more about that and hear more about your process and everything that you've been doing. So, welcome, Joe Hasper.
I'm Dr. Joe Hasper, and I teach music theory and composition over in the music department, and I also direct the jazz bands. So today is a presentation of what I've been spending your sabbatical money with. I was granted a sabbatical last fall, ostensibly to write a new symphony. And we'll talk about the origins of that and how it came to be this specific piece. And we'll talk a little bit about the tools and methods that I personally use to compose with. And then I want to spend a little bit of reflection with you on the experience of being on sabbatical and not being here for the routine of college life. So before I start, I need to make some more acknowledgments. This is from my opening remarks at the premiere of the symphony.
I wrote this symphony last fall when I was on sabbatical, and the time off to devote to writing this was so beneficial. So I'd like to thank the administrators who made this possible. The chairman of the Department of Music, Dr. Tenford, the dean of the Calderwood School of Arts and Letters, Dr. Paul Kemney, and the Grove City College Provost, Dr. Peter Frank, without whose support I couldn't have done this. I'd like to give a special thanks to our maestro, Dr. Tenford. About a year ago, before a single note of the symphony had been written, he already committed his orchestra to playing tonight with this. So he had no idea what he was getting into. He had no idea how much personal investment he was going to have to make into score study and going over notes with me and then coaching the orchestra through it. It was a really big ask, so thank you.
And I realized as I was putting these slides together that I should have thanked the Board of Trustees as well. But thank you all for making that possible. It was an incredible experience of having that time off to do some really deep creative stuff. So my inspiration for this was Hiromi Uehara. She's kind of a big thing in the contemporary jazz scene. She's a Japanese native and has won accolades from the Downbeat Jazz Awards, a couple Grammys, headlining festivals all over the world. She's kind of a big deal. This particular piece, more than anything else, inspired me to write this song. Really fun piece. There's a number of things that are really striking about it. Technically, it is virtuoso level on not just her part, but her ensemble. It's just really top level playing. But if you listen to it with the sound off and just watch it, that's what got me. They're having fun, but they're enjoying themselves. They're totally in the moment, and just really having a blast playing this music with this group of people at this time. And that was the essence of what I wanted to capture, more than any technical aspect. I threw Wynton Marsalis's symphony up there. He's one of the precedents. There have been a number of other orchestras that have incorporated jazz elements as early as the 1920s and on into the 2020s. Sorry. Wynton Marsalis is a big name in jazz. He's a stellar performer. He's a leader of the Lincoln Center Jazz Band, which is about as high an accolade as you can get. Multiple Grammy winner, teaches music at some big university. But anyway, he's written a number of really accomplished symphonies. This is his latest one, the Blues Symphony. So already in the opening bars there, we can hear some elements of the blues style coming in. The retrogression from the dominant chord to the subdominant, which is a real classic thing. A string bass was going to come in on a pizzicato arpeggio, which is a real blues jazz thing to do. So despite the accolades, he's by no means the only person that has been writing this kind of things. And in particular, I found it interesting as I was doing research that there's a long history of orchestras using fixed media. By fixed media, we mean something either pre-recorded or pre-assembled and then played back, always the same, unvarying, every time the piece is performed. As early as 1924, Respighi, The Pines of Rome, beautiful song, was originally composed to have a soundtrack of bird calls going on behind it. Now, they didn't have electronic playback then. It was designed to be played back on a 78 RPM record. Early example. Edgar Varese, early 20th century pioneer in this Klangfarben, sound collage kind of music, where we don't hear melodies, we hear mixtures of colors from the different pieces of the orchestra that come together. So he wrote this piece, Dessert, that incorporated tape. Back then they were using magnetic tape. Zimmerman's Requiem is another famous piece, and I didn't know that Leonard Bernstein's Mass also has a pre-recorded track that goes with it. And then more recently, there's just a host of things. I could have listed 5 times this number of recent pieces that are using real orchestra, live players with fixed medium. So I didn't invent the medium by any means. Some comments on these other precedents, though, and why I don't feel that they totally meet the bill of what I was trying to do. And what I was trying to do is write a piece that was 100% jazz and 100% orchestral at the same time. How is that possible? Well, that was what I hoped to figure out. But these other ones lack one of the 3 specifications that are required for true jazz. A sense of swing in which there's a regular pulse, but the divisions of the pulse are variable. And they're not arbitrary. The whole ensemble together as a group has to interpret and decide where those subdivisions are going to fall. So the beats may be fixed, but what happens between them varies. That doesn't happen in classical music. It doesn't happen in rock or pop music, but it happens in swing. In fact, it's essential for jazz. Syncopation is an essential element, and improvisation. A lot of music sounds jazzy or jazz-ish or has jazz elements in it, But if they're playing the same exact thing every single time, that's not improvisation, and it's not really jazz. You're just using elements of the jazz style in a different way. So, Rhapsody in Blue, masterpiece work, beautiful, monumental work, but not really jazz. George Antheil, 1927. I think he came closer to the real jazz thing, but still not meeting all three criteria. And here's what I mean by he came closer to real jazz. If we picture the opening of Rhapsody in Blue, it's jazzy, and he's using a lot of cliches from the jazz idiom, but it doesn't meet all three criteria. George Antheil, closer to real jazz. And by what I mean closer is there's an element of jazz that when you combine the swing feel and the syncopation and improvisation of always being right on the edge of catastrophe. And I think George Antheil's piece has that feeling of being right on the edge of catastrophe. But the harmonic language used in it, some really dissonant, non-tonal kind of things, really make it hard for us, anyone, to really appreciate it on first hearing. Now, is it necessary to appreciate something on first hearing? Yeah, I think on some level. I mean, it doesn't mean we have to totally understand it, but I think there needs to be a window of opportunity to look into a piece. And I think George's piece is kind of difficult to do. And all the others that were written before 1950 were not going to suffice as models for what I wanted to do, because I wanted to do something that was relevant to today's music scene, to current society and our issues. So Tommy Dorsey, Glenn Miller, love them, but not as saying anything relevant to 2025. Some remarks on Wynton Marsalis's symphonies. Really nice writing. He's a great composer. But they weren't going to serve as models for what I was looking for either. So that got me thinking, maybe I don't want to really write a jazz symphony after all. I mean, after all, people don't like jazz. And there's a whole thing about jazz. And I think The Simpsons best sum it up.
You know, you play pretty well for someone with no real problems.
Yeah, but I don't feel any better.
The blues isn't about feeling better. It's about making other people feel worse. But that's why you asked. Which reminds me, if you're ever in the neighborhood, I'm playing in a little club called the Jazz Hall.
Lisa, get away from that jazz man. But Mom, can I stay longer? We were worried about you. Nothing personal, I just fear the unfamiliar.
And there you have it. So I don't want to necessarily write music to make people feel worse. And all things being equal, I'd like people to like the music. So I started doing some diagramming. People who like music is a large subset of the human population. People who like classical music, smaller subset. And then people who enjoy contemporary music, even a smaller subset. And the people who enjoy it's really a niche thing. So for all of these reasons, I started to think in other ways to blend the ideas of the freshness, the in-the-moment spontaneity, the enjoyment of the moment with other elements. I like this analogy, and it goes to why people don't like orchestral music, or contemporary music, or jazz. It'd be like trying to watch a cricket match if you don't know anything about the game. You can see the players on the field, you can appreciate the geometry of the layout, you can kind of guess what the different pieces of equipment are for, but you really don't know why people are going on and off the field at different times. And you don't know why the crowd is yelling at some times and booing at other times. You're just missing almost everything about it because you don't understand it. And I think a lot of people feel that way about orchestral music and about new music. They haven't been exposed to it, or been guided through it. So all they can appreciate are the very surface features, and what they see is just not that appealing. So we shouldn't make audiences have to work before they can appreciate the piece of music. This is from my opening comments at the premiere.
There are notes in the program about the symphony, and I'll be giving a formal lecture on it on April 28th here at Grove City College. But if there's one thing I'd like you to know about symphony before you listen to it tonight, it's that you don't have to know anything. You should be able to hear it and either like it or not like it. That's how we understand music. That's the beginning of it. Dr. Tenford mentioned themes and motives and movements. Forget that, just listen to the music. You can like it, you can not like it, but that is understanding. That's all I can ask for you. So, the orchestra does sound great tonight. Thank you.
You know, what I didn't say at the premiere was that that's not the end of understanding. That is merely the beginning of understanding. And certainly, if you understand the structure of music and harmonic functions, and as far as you want to go, the deeper and more nuanced you can appreciate different pieces of music. The same way I can appreciate a bird, because it's a beautiful creation of God. But if I recognize that it's a woodpecker, that adds a new level of understanding. And if I understand that it's a pileated woodpecker, okay, now I know something about how relatively common or rare they are, what time of year they show up, what they eat, what colors are normal for them. And then I can appreciate this bird on a whole different level. So to me, that's how music works. So, on to this piece. There's a lot of preliminary work to do. And this has everything to do with how I personally work. Well, the first thing was to decide what ensemble is this going to be for. And I chose the ensemble largely because of availability. You know, thanks to Jeff for making these orchestra available. As I said in my opening remarks at the premiere, it's a big ask to ask someone to commit their ensemble, whether it's a choir, orchestra, or band, to a new piece of music that they've never heard before. So the availability of the orchestra is a huge plus. And the orchestra is a really classical, nice ensemble to write for. The potential of expression in those instruments of the orchestra are just really nice to work with. But there's also restrictions. Because it was written for the Grove City College Orchestra, for example, I had to keep in mind that there weren't going to be any bassoons in it. Normally, you'd expect some bassoons in an orchestra. I had to expect maybe imbalance in the strings a little bit. I think we have 2 violas.
6.
6.
But 16 cellos.
Okay. Yeah, cellos win.
Yeah.
So all of these things go into consideration. I don't think any composer really writes truly unfettered. I think there always is some kind of box that you put yourself in. So then there was a question about how to use electronics, because I definitely wanted to use some electronic element in this. And there are two broad categories. One is a fixed media, whether it's a tape or a digital replay or whatever, that is always played the same way every time. You know, if you decide you're going to go that route, you can either have one continuous sound that goes from beginning of the piece to the end, which has its own challenges and limitations, or you can have multiple clips. You might have the orchestra play for a minute and then play a clip that lasts for 5 seconds. The orchestra plays more, they're still playing, play another clip, and cue them in sequence throughout the piece. I did a piece a few years ago in which we did exactly that. The orchestra is off on the side here, and the conductor, as he's directing the orchestra, at various times has to push buttons to cue these sounds. So that was an example of fixed media, in that the sounds that were produced were always the same, but they were triggered at different times by the conductor as we went through the score. But that places a lot of burdens on the conductor, because he's got to synchronize the live players as well as manage the triggering, but it can be done. The other broad category is to have interactive electronics, which we use some kind of sensors to predict or detect what the live performers are doing and then react to it. And in that interaction, we can manipulate sound and or gestures to do anything sonically. Max, the program by Cycling 74, is kind of the standard for this, and it has a lot of models built into it that allow you to do different types of detection. In this piece here, later on in the piece, we actually used some visual detection. You can't see it, but there's a laser line across the floor here. And when dancers would come across that line, it would be detected by the program and it would trigger a certain sound. Now this next piece though, it's for a solo xylophone, and I've got the program set up so that it recognizes specific pitches and different gestures on the xylophone. And depending on what they are, how loud they are, how long they take, the program will react in different ways. It's a really abstract kind of piece. But the point is that the program was reacting to my performance. If I had played that same piece, say, twice as slow, the program would have recognized that and reacted twice as slow. So it was capable of true interaction. So those are two different models. There's challenges and advantages to each one. In the end, I thought that there was way more advantages for what I wanted to do with this piece, to just use a fixed media model and do a single track, start at the beginning of each movement and continue all the way to the end. And so that's what we did. The time to complete this was a factor. I had less than a year, not 15 years, so We had to make this happen. The size of the orchestra, all these things, the difficulty levels, and all this. Everything. All went to construct the box that I was working with. This is a sketch from Beethoven's notebook. He was a famous sketcher. He would habitually carry a notebook with him, and as he walked through town or through the woods, he would occasionally make notes on his pieces. Well, I'm a famous notebooker too. I've got 30 years of notebooks. I don't know why I keep them, but I've got them. And this is what they typically look like. As I think of things, in this case I was working on the symphony for a couple of months. There's a lot of pages devoted to specific sections that I was trying to work out. Oh goodness. So my overall method is I always start with a broad idea of what I'm trying to accomplish. And I make a description of that in graphics and text descriptions. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it happy? Is it sad? And as many terms and descriptors as I can to just set the mood for it. Once I have a feeling for the general parameters, then I work down to more specifics. What key is it in? What tempo is it going to be? What instruments are going to be specifically here? Maybe what form is this section going to have? And then once I have that figured out, then I work down to a smaller granular level. What is that melody actually going to be? And then start composing it out. The overall plan will take these things and other things into consideration in as much detail as I can pre-plan as possible. Because I don't think anyone can write a 20-minute symphony. It's impossible. It's hard to keep track of all that span of time and the numerous details. But I can write 8 bars of music. So the further we can refine our gaze down, I think it becomes possible. You can't eat an elephant, except one bite at a time. As an example, let's say today we're going to write a piece that is 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. That's our box. Why 2 minutes and 40 seconds? I don't know. That's just our box for today. We might decide, how do we want to structure this length of time? It might be a continuous 2 minutes and 40 seconds, or it might have divisions of more or less number and various proportions to each other. This is, I think, a workable set of proportions. A relatively short beginning, a longer middle, and then wrap it up at the end. And we might assign some times to that. From there, I would start making descriptors of what I want to happen in each section. From the general descriptors, get more specific and start thinking about keys and key relationships, about how different tempi and meters are going to flow into each other. But notice that there's still not a single note of music here. There's no melody that you could sing yet. As an example for the opening section, if I've determined that I want to spend 50 seconds in here and I want this tempo, I know I have to write 27 measures of music. That's a very concrete task. Writing 2 minutes and 40 seconds is kind of broad and too much to handle, but I can write 27 measures of music. And especially if I think about the different ways that I could possibly structure 27. Music is very commonly in 8-bar phrases. So if we go 8-bar phrases, I can have 3, and then an extra 3 left over. Now, we could just do something for 8 bars, and do it again, and do it again, and do a little bit of it. That would fill up 27 measures. But there are more nuanced kind of musical structures that we can use. ABA, do something different, and then refresh us what we just talked about, and then we'll transition into the next section. That's an example of how I would structure this piece and how I begin most of my compositions, starting with very broad parameters and working down to very specifics until I only have to write these 8 bars of music. And then this 8 bars, and then this 8 bars. Because the structure has been pre-approved, and I feel pretty good about that, I feel pretty confident in being able to constrict myself to thinking about this, or these 3 bars, knowing that it's going to fit in place because I've done the preliminary steps to ensure that it will all fit together. So once I've got that far, then I can start writing the music. And I start writing with a simple 2-line sketch, basically a piano sketch. Whether it's for orchestra or band, whatever, it all starts with 2 lines. If I can't make the music work in 2 lines, it needs to be fixed. If it can work in 2 lines, then it's fundamentally solid. It's going to work in a larger ensemble. From the 2-line sketch, then I break it out into families. Just 2 lines for the strings, a line for the percussion, 2 lines for the woodwinds, and 2 lines for the brass. And I'm not worried a whole lot at this stage about whether it's a violin or a cello playing, but I know I want a string playing. I'm not concerned whether it's an oboe or a flute, but I want a woodwind. Again, if I can fit all of the string parts into 2 staves, it's going to be fundamentally sound. Once I have that, then I can go to a full score and get specific about, oh, this was a string sound. Maybe I want the violins to do this. And that's how that works. Here's the actual sketch for the first iteration of the symphony. So I conceived of 3 movements, Roman 1, Roman 2, and Roman numeral 3, and I've got some broad dimensions there. My initial sketch was 24 minutes. The actual symphony came out to 22 minutes. I'm okay with that. The blueprint isn't a restriction, it's just a guide. I don't feel bad at all if I change some of the particulars. They're a guide to go by. I've made markings on the tempos, quarter equals 1/3, 32, etc. Some very basic outline notes, theme and variations, use of non-triadic stuff. And then just trying to come up with as many verbal descriptors of the sections as I can. This is a sketch from the 4th movement, which was actually the first movement that I composed. And you can see some of the elements that I talked about, working from very general descriptors down to more specifics. This is the actual harmonic progression that I'm going to use, and the different elements that go into it. This is a sketch for the 3rd movement, which I actually composed last. It shows the same timeline kind of notation, a short introduction, an A section, 4 bars of transition, a variation on the A section, and then percussion to the end. And then the details. Some stuff that didn't make it into the final version. And a lot of ideas that I thought would have been really cool, but they didn't fit my prescription or didn't fit into the music that was actually working itself out. So, got left on the table. Some of my notebook pages as I was working on this. Some of them are pretty technical. Here I was working out different possible ways to structure a phrase or a pair of phrases. So I worked out a number of different combinations, and the table up on the top is a working out of all these along with some different other options, and from this matrix wrote the music to fit.
So, Joe, what does it mean when you have it? Some of them have X through them in the left-hand column.
Oh, these ones? That means I've used it.
And then some of them have just one slash?
Yeah, there's actually 3 slashes here. There's 1 slash, there's a 2nd slash across it, and then some of them got a 3rd one. Yeah, because there was some repetition going on.
So that's how you're keeping track of it.
Yeah, just keeping tally.
And when you're doing the, like figuring out keys, are you doing any of that by actually playing the instruments or just kind of going by what you're?
No. I have a good feeling for what B flat to A flat sounds like.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. The training of your ear and your mind is so important.
Oh, so you're not using a keyboard or
No.
anything like that when you're.
No.
You know, you could.
Yeah, one of my teachers told me to, when I was very young, to use the piano as a tool, not a crutch.
Yeah.
So use it when it's applicable, when it's the right tool for the job. But a better solution, and it much, much quicker, is to be able to ideate, oh, that's what a B flat to a C sounds like. Oh, I know what it's going to sound like because I know.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to a piano and go ting ting. Which is actually a very slow way to do things. Okay, so onto the tools. Now that was my method and my process. This is my studio. It's my happy place. The artwork is what I want to have on my wall. Especially the AI creation there. So I use 2 computers. One is a master and one is a slave, and they're pretty well spec'd out, I think. Under the bench, I do have a piano right there.
Okay.
So it's right there if I need it. But it's far faster not to use it. Pair of speakers, subwoofer under the table. This is a control surface where I can adjust levels and things in my DAW. Okay. And then a handful of software packages that I use daily basis. Finale does the actual music notation. The Ensemble Pro is a management tool for synthetic sounds. Pro Tools is a digital audio workstation. Audacity does video editing. And then, of course, Microsoft Word and Acrobat to actually format the final printed parts. And then ShowCue system is what Dr. Tedford actually used during the performance. I set up the pre-recorded electronic parts as sound files that he would start at the beginning of each movement in this program. Oh, some of the other tools, yeah. Yeah, the glamorous part is the computer side. The inglamorous part is when I have to print 2 reams of parts for oboes and bassoons and string players. And then cut them to size if needed, bind them, pick the right paper type. It's inglorious, but it's part of the process. And actually, it's kind of enjoyable to have finished something and then watch it spin off the printer. Oh, there's a flute part. There's an oboe part. Oh, yeah. It just reflects on it. So, Dr. Tedford began rehearsals in the spring semester, and I got a chance to talk to the orchestra beforehand, which was nice. Really nice, really nice. In retrospect, I probably should have been more helpful to them in understanding what I was after. I don't think I got into very much detail at all about the sound and the vibe that I was going for. Next time I will do that. And I actually got 2 performances. At the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association, they played the first movement of the piece, kind of as a preview. And then the day after, they came back here to Grove City and played the whole thing. Future work. Sheet music sales. I would like orchestras to buy copies of this, but the reality is, if I sell 1 copy of this in the next 20 years, I would be surprised. There's just not a huge market for unknown composers to do this. I will probably get some royalties from the performances, the 2 performances. Typically between, my annual royalties run between $15 to $22 a year. So that's the scope. And then I do plan to enter it into several competitions. The Barlow Prize is a pretty big deal. You can't really enter the Pulitzer Prize, you have to get nominated. So if anyone's on the nominating board. And then revisions. Everything I've written is open to revision. I don't feel the book is ever closed on anything I've written. So there are already things that I'm not quite happy with this piece that I would definitely go back and fix. And then there's the option or possibility or opportunity of adapting it for other ensembles. Because I think it's structurally sound as a piece, that the rhythms and the meters and the keys and all that work together in a fundamentally structurally sound way. I think it could be adapted to a wind band, or maybe 6 to 8 player small ensemble. I originally wanted to use saxophones, but we ended up not doing it. Maybe there could be a version that uses the saxes, and so forth. So there's different options for it. So how does it sound? That's the real question. These are my working versions. These are all mock-ups that I made right in my studio. So I'll just play you a couple seconds of each to give you an idea of what I was thinking of when I was writing this. First movement. This is my favorite movement. And the final movement, which is a true sonata. Yeah, Doctor. I'm just going to mention our conversation. That's okay. You asked me about the sounds that I used in it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to teach it for.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay. But he asked a really great question about some of the sounds in it. He's like, and it was a very valid question. It's, why not use live players to do some of the drum sounds in that? And the answer is, there's a very specific timbre to EDM drums. The hi-hat in EDM genre doesn't sound anything like an acoustic hi-hat. The bass drum in electronic dance music doesn't sound anything like a real bass drum. There are specific timbres that you can only get electronically. So that's why I did that. I really wanted that to sound. Okay, so here's the Grove City College version. And so, there's a difference, and that's to be expected. Neither good nor bad, it's just different. It's like watching TV at home and watching TV at the arena. It's a little different experience. So, part 2, the sabbatical experience. I was given this block of time to work. And so, because I'm a planner, I figured I have 251 days, and if I can work 12 hours a day, minimum, I could easily put 3,000 plus hours into this. Wouldn't that be terrific? And yes, bring on the coffee and make me like Beethoven. But the reality is I'm not 20 anymore. I really can't work 12 hours straight anymore. I found for me a rhythm, 2 hours, take a break. 2 hours, take a break, is about what I can do and what I can be productive at. And no man is an island, nor would you want to be, turns out. Obligations. I wrote down a list of them. And we all have a lot of the same ones. Changing the oil in the car, cutting the grass, dentist appointments, getting the mail, feeding the dog, pool maintenance, house maintenance, brushing your hair. All of these things take time out of my 12 hours of the day. But it turns out it's not all a bad thing. That is the stuff of life. So I think that's to be relished as much as any other part of it. It was a large number of days, though, and there were opportunities. Let's bring this back. Opportunities to rethink priorities about what is worth spending my time on. I only have so many hours left. What am I going to spend them on? And then trying to declutter, trying to get rid of those, not just things, but those routines and other things that aren't that important. So, opportunities. We did some travel. These are the places we went to. And these are the things we saw. This is the Mackinac Bridge. I'm sorry, yes, the Mackinac Bridge, which is otherwise known as the Bridge of Death. It's enormously daunting, and we were driving over steel grating here in that RV. It was daunting. But we did go up and saw Lake Superior, sorry. Yeah, Upper Peninsula, yeah. And the funny story is, we researched it because we really wanted to see the Northern Lights, and that was going to be the best place in the United States during that time period. So we went up there and never did see a single Northern Light. We made it out to Yellowstone, which is amazing. Side trip through Chicago. Yellowstone's amazing. Made it out to Oklahoma to see my daughter. Yes, she drives tractors and she rides horses and things like that. And the weather looks like that. This is the Mississippi River. We camped along the Mississippi there, and really cool to see barges going up and down. And this is from Pigeon Forge. There is a place where you can intermix with the parrots and other kinds of exotic birds, and they're very friendly. So we did that. Then we took a trip down to Myrtle Beach, which was beautiful. We lucked out and got a really nice stretch of days there. Okay, so travel, yes, and besides working on the symphony, I had a number of other things that I wanted to do, so I wrote some other pieces of music. Portrait number 5 was played a couple weeks ago at the Penn State New Music Festival. It's really nice. And this is the oddball, Solstice. I wrote this at the end of my sabbatical. I just think it's nice.
The days grow short, the nights are long, shadows grow where I don't belong.
It's just a nice song, and I thought, why not just write a nice song? I also did some performing. It's a really fun group called Martina and the Sinners. Since disbanded, but we played a couple of really kind of scary gigs in scary parts of town. It's really fun. And this is a group I play with Jane Gregg and John Elmer, and I did some playing, I accompany at church services as well. Which brings us to the premiere last Friday of the Urban Symphony. And here we are today. Questions? Okay.
You talked about one of the core elements of jazz being improvisation. You picked fixed media. What's the interplay there?
Oh, yeah. I should have emphasized, I decided not to write a jazz piece.
I see. Okay. I was just curious.
No, but that's great,
Yeah.
because it fails to be jazz on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you said when you started you had a really broad idea. And I guess I've kind of thought that a lot of musicians, they'll have like a little, I don't know, some kind of like thing that gets in their head that's really small, and then they work it out. What direction does it normally go? Where you have some kind of lick, and then you expand it out, or you start broad and work out?
No, I have lots of licks living in my head, right? But I think to work that way from a tiny little fragment and then expand it out, it's kind of like starting with a nail and seeing if you're going to get a bus station or a church or a house when you're done. You know, I think it's better to start with what you want. I want a house, and then work your way down. So that's how I work at it. So I've got plenty of ideas. There's no dearth of ideas. So when I say I'm going to write a house, I can think, oh, okay, I want this in it, and I want this in it, and I want this in it. To more directly answer your question, I rarely get an idea and say, oh, I'm going to develop that into a piece. If I did, or when I do, as soon as I decide that, oh, that's worth expanding into a thing, then I set my parameters. Well, what kind of thing is it going to be? Oh, it's going to be a 3-minute pop song. Oh, it's going to be a 12-minute something. And this is where that idea fits into it.
So like on that short song Solstice, are the words going first or the music going first?
Yeah, the words came first on that one. Yeah, I knew the mood that I wanted, and I wanted to have this kind of lilt, so I'm writing the words to fit that. Yeah.
Hey, Joe's. Oh, I'm sorry. Stop it.
Okay.
To Mark's point, in jazz, the improvisation piece, is it always unwritten? I mean,
Yes, otherwise it's not.
that's what I thought. I figured improvisation means it's truly unwritten, but that would be pretty remarkable, it seems, to have that in a symphony form. Or not?
Yeah, doable by players that have been trained to do it.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to. That's typical. And this is the information that the player would need. There's nothing very specific about B flat here, play a quarter note here. It's just a guideline. So they're not totally making it out of thin air.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, now I guess I'm curious, so like, I assume you can't really do this now, but like, have you ever like written things where like you just kind of hit notes and have no idea what's going to happen? Because that's kind of how I write things.
But yes, kind of. So using this program Max, it's a graphical programming language, so you can take different inputs, and it's very adept at using MIDI outputs and sound outputs. So yeah, program some chaotic or random generators into it and see what comes out. Yeah, I've done that.
I just mean like actually like just hitting keyboard notes and not even thinking about it. No, yeah, that's what I think. I guess you can't really do that.
I would.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try that.
I don't know anything about the structure of a symphony, but was there a reason why you started with the fourth movement and you ended with the third?
Yeah, I knew when I was writing it that that movement was going to be the last one because of the character of it. And even not knowing about the structure of symphonies, just emotionally, I'm thinking about the emotional trajectory. I want to end on a high note. Okay, and this piece fits there. So as I was writing, I wrote that last piece first, and then the first one, because I knew, okay, this is the kind of energy I want to generate at the beginning. And then the slow movement, I knew that would come third, because as the energy is going, I really wanted to dip there. And those are the things that make energy go down. So, you see?
Yeah, no, I was also curious because you said that your favorite was the third one. The third one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you about that. My process for all these other ones and my general work process is just as I described. Graphic, text description, and burrowed out. Third movement, I wrote entirely differently. This one, I started just playing things on the keyboard and then organizing them. And then after the sound was created, then I reverse engineered it into notation and what it would take the orchestra to reproduce that. So part of the process, I think, helped to get a more free-flowing kind of feel through it. Because I wasn't working on staff paper, I was working timeline. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That piece, the third movement, called Adagio on 27th Street.
Yeah.
What about 27th Street? I was just curious as far as what inspired that part of it.
So it's an urban symphony. I want everything to run. Here's the dirty little secret. I could easily have called it Fred's Potatoes. The kind of titles for me come after and are very not important to the meaning of the piece. So when I was casting about for a title, I do like several adagios, particularly Sam Barber's Adagio for Strings. It's a classic. So I was thinking, okay, adagio, adagio, adagio. And then I wanted to link it to something urban. I was thinking, okay, adagio on Broadway? Nah, too cliche. Adagio on 12th Street? 27th, maybe.
So there's no particular 27th Street or anything like that. They just fit the vibe that you wanted, that you felt.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so it wasn't a totally arbitrary title. It had to fit the vibe and kind of reinforce the feeling that I wanted to go. So Fred's Potatoes would have been
Latch on to it.
So, yeah, that's great. There is no narrative that goes behind these, like, oh, I was raised on 27th Street, blah, blah, blah. No. Right.
Yeah, so I guess now like with the theory aspect of it too, so like when you're like hearing the notes, like are you thinking more like kind of theoretically, like, oh, this is this kind of chord, it'll go to this, or is it more like, I hear those notes, that sounds right? Like
That.
okay.
Yeah, there are times when I'm thinking, okay, this is where I'm at in music, and I need to go here. I've got this stretch where I need to figure out how do I get from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
Then it can be very helpful to think, okay, what are the ways I can get there? Secondary dominant, borrowed chord, common tone chord, blah, 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 you know, because I know these things.
Mm-hmm.
I could work them out by ear. Nope, that's not right. Nope, that's not right. But it's far faster if you know these techniques.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
The same with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
You could not know a lick of music theory and just do this by trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
It would take you a gazillion years, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, theory just speeds things up.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the line shift between something feeling improvisational and being truly improvisational? Because there's structure.
Yeah, because listening
There
to it,
are
how do you know?
limitations,
Yeah,
hypothetically.
yeah.
Because you said, the Gershwin is improvisational in the way it feels, in the, the melodic lines, things like that, but it isn't truly improvised, of course.
Right.
So obviously that's not improvisation, but
But if you didn't know that it wasn't improvised, how would you know? Yeah,
sure.
I guess we have to be honest.
Okay, I was curious, guess I'll.
No, it's a great question, but it's a really fine
Sure.
question.
Gray lines.
Yeah. Oh, one more.
This question is about your creative process. You showed us a lot of other work that you completed during the timeline. Are you usually working on different pieces at the same time?
Not usually. Not usually. The bulk of this, the hard work of the symphony, was done by September. So I always, when I can, spend a lot of time in the revision. Listen to it again, listen to it again. Say, oh, that is not quite right. Fix it. Listen to it again. Oh, that could be better. Fix it. So I knew that I wanted a lot of time for repetitious hearing and revision. But that left a lot of time to do these other pieces too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I generally don't work on multiple pieces. I find it more effective, efficient to finish one, go on. So if you would say, I'd like you to write me something next week, and Brian comes up and says, I'd like something tomorrow too, I would finish one and then work on the other one.
And I'm also curious too with the dynamics and like kind of the expression. But do you like hear that in your head too, or does that work out when you're playing?
Because that's part of the sound.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, instruments, to me, sound very different when they play soft and loud. So beyond the choice of trumpet or clarinet, is it loud clarinet or soft trumpet? Those things go into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.